S-foils in attack position and switch your deflectors on. It is time for another episode of Red 5 Standing By. I am one of your two hosts, Jedi Master Ekum Newelf, and with me is our friend, Jedi Master Johnny D.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining and thanks for listening, and hello Master Newhouse, thanks for hosting.
My pleasure as always. Today we will be talking about Episode 8 of Star Wars the Acolyte, the season finale, possibly the series finale. Got
What?
Quite an episode to talk about, so...
Series finale? Whoa.
Get to it. What's
wow.
that, Johnny D?
Series finale, eh? Oh, okay,
Possibly.
Well, that's
Possibly.
exciting stuff. Can't wait to talk about it. So let's sit back and get ready for another exciting episode of Red 5 Standing By. All right, Mr. Newhouse. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, and thanks for, with a tantalizing topic that we'll have to get to about the future of this show. But yeah, let's get started just talking about the episode itself, because it definitely was an eventful one.
It was an eventful one. Well, this episode was titled The Acolyte, the name of the series itself. It was written by Jason Micallef and directed by Hanel M. Culpepper, the same person that directed episode 6 of this series. So yeah, this was it. There was lots of revelations, a lot of things wrapped up, a couple of loose ends left hanging, a couple of pretty important and major character cameos that we'll get into as we talk about this. Is there anything off the top of your head that you want to talk about spoiler free before we dig into this?
Oh, well, I mean, it definitely was, I found it an enjoyable episode. Yeah, sad that something happened that we'll get to when we get to the spoilers part. So yeah, but yeah, definitely an eventful episode and lots of different little tidbits that, yeah, that kind of made me like want to see another season. But yeah, I mean, I'm not completely surprised that you said the potential that is a series finale, just because I have thought of that and you know, looked at the lay of the land of the Star Wars in reality universe to go, yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts. You know, definitely I would say that in episode 7 definitely felt 2 were the stronger episodes. Definitely I was quite engaged. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts, Newhouse.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. I mean, my spoiler-free review as well would basically be like, this was definitely one of the strongest episodes, but funnily enough, probably my biggest complaints about the entire 8 episodes came from this episode as well. Just because there were a couple of minor things that I didn't really enjoy or understand, or I mean, we'll get into it. But that does not detract from my overall enjoyment of this episode and this series as a whole. But hey, yeah, I mean, let's just get into it, I guess. Hey?
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, well, this episode started off pretty much right where episode 6 left off. Where episode 6, because episode 7 was the flashback episode where we went back to 16 years in the past to Brendok, where we got to see the events of that fateful evening that decided the trajectory of Osha and May. So before that, though, we had Osha was on the unknown planet with Kamir. She had just put on the Stranger helmet, the teethy helmet that's made out of cortosis. And the other major storyline that was happening is Saul had just managed to... He had figured out that May was masquerading as Osha, and he had stunned her and tied her up in the bed. So that was where we left off before we got into the flashback episode last time, is with... Osha putting on the helmet and May about to possibly hear the truth from what happened that night from Jedi Master Saul. So yeah, there was quite the scene that opened this. I wasn't really sure what happened the first time I watched it. I got a better grasp now, but I still have some questions. But basically, Osha had the helmet on. You had the deep, heavy breathing, and then her body kind of contorted. and her breathing started to become erratic. Like
that was
something was happening.
That was a crazy scene. That was a confusing and crazy scene. But I didn't like so much happened after that I totally forgot about that scene until you just mentioned it. But it was definitely a scene with a lot of questions. But go ahead, please continue.
Well, what stood out to me was the concern that Khmer immediately, I got the impression he was not expecting that to happen at all.
Yeah, he was like...
He immediately he screamed her name, and he was trying to get the helmet off. But then, now, the way I interpret this is he went to go get the helmet off, and then you got his perspective, his point of view, where everything turned dark, and it was like someone was trying to control him, and his eyes turned black. So
yeah, that's right. That happened too. Yeah.
The impression I got there is that was Osha himself. That was Osha using the power that her mother had when she could enter the mind, the Jedi.
Yeah.
The lighting, it got that specific dark blue lighting that we got from that scene when she was doing that with Torben. But the impression I got is that Khmer was so strong in the Force, because it was also interesting because they did two perspectives. They did it from his perspective, which you could tell by the lighting around him, where his face was like, you could see he was struggling. He was fight through whatever was holding him back. But then when you got from her perspective, the real world perspective, where his eyes were black, there was no strain on his face whatsoever. It was like he was hypnotized. He was under a state. So it was interesting that I found it interesting, at least, that you had a contrast between what was happening in the physical world and then what was happening in his mind from that perspective, where he was struggling against this.
Yeah. And also interesting is that he's been kind of seems to be Mr. In Control, kind of almost manipulating this path for her. But you go, well, is he fully manipulating her, or is he kind of letting things flow? But yeah, I mean, he was surprised, and so maybe he's not completely has everything laid out. I mean, of course, we now know, you'll get to it eventually, is that he's not the only person manipulating things. There's somebody behind him. But for this instance, yes, he's. I mean, I think he's kind of becoming a bit more of a sympathetic character from my viewpoint, because he is not so all powerful, and he's actually seems to be constantly questioning the universe subtly, right? And there's new things that he's discovering for himself. So, and for the wider picture right now, we'll get to it. Is that we're gonna get to the spoilers. I think we gotta get to the spoiler zone right now, Nuaz, because we do have to get it on the table. That
Okay, let's do it a little differently. Instead of doing it scene by scene, let's do it by storyline. So instead of getting back into what's happening with Osha and Soul right now, let's just stick.
I'll just wrap up my thought here. I'll wrap up with my thought here, then you can take over. Is that he's becoming a potential hero for the future of the show if it continues, because I find him interesting, his story right now as it's developing. And that was a moment of vulnerability. It was new stuff for him. So like I said, he's discovering he's also a kick-ass fighter, so that makes him an interesting character just because he's won. Again, spoilers, fantastic fight scenes in this episode. So yeah, that's just to wrap up that my sense of that scene, a very, very fascinating scene. There probably more questions. You probably have more questions, so I'll leave it to you to take over, Nuaz. Yeah, you're bringing back a flood of thoughts of that scene now, because like I say, I forgot about it because so much other stuff happened in this episode, right?
Right. So yeah, so basically he fights through the attempted mind control, and he manages to lift off the helmet off of Osha, and she comes back to herself. And it was also interesting, I did see pointed out on New Rockstars, one of the YouTube channels that I do frequently every week and kind of get their things. It was pointed out that at the second that the helmet came off, you could see in her eyes the reflection of the red lightsaber. And what that reflection was, is she tells Khmer that she had a vision. So what was happening at that part is she connected with the Force, more so than she probably has since she was training to be a Jedi. Because up to this point, we really haven't had any confirmation that she is connecting to the Force, except when they arrived on Brendok earlier, and she sensed the creatures that were living on the trees. So it was getting hinted at that she was connecting with the Force, but we hadn't actually seen that yet. But so this scene was the first time where we know that she's connecting with the Force, because she had a vision of her sister killing Saul with a lightsaber in her hand, but she wasn't using the lightsaber to kill him. She was killing him. I forget exactly what the line was, but she was killing him, and she wasn't using the lightsaber.
Well, her path is like it accelerated a ton this episode, but in some ways it makes sense again with what we've discovered as we get to it. But yeah. Well, she's gone from like 0 to 170,000 miles per hour, I think, since she started off, which is interesting because she was probably nullified. Our force was just nullified, and now it's kind of coming back in an intense way, and then it's really picking up speed, probably beyond what Khmer was anticipating, right? And
right.
And really things change fast for her this episode. That's for sure.
Yes. And so Khmer says, like, you had a vision. This is what you saw in the Force. And also, interestingly, I will note that Khmer's attitude towards Osha changes instantly in this minute. Whereas 60 seconds before, he was concerned about her. He was worried that the helmet was doing something to her, and he was trying to get it off. But after she takes the helmet off and says that she had this vision, he's like, okay, well, I'm going. I'm leaving. And she's like, well, I know where my sister is. And she's like, well, how are you going to get there? I'm taking my ship, meaning like, I'm not taking you with me. I'm going to go get May. And she's like, well, I'm the one who knows where she is. You're not going to be able to find her without me. So he's like, all right, well, we go together then. And once we get there, it's fair game. Like, whoever finds her first is who finds her. So I found it interesting that, like I said, he was very concerned about Osha when she had the helmet on, but afterwards, and she communicated that she saw this Force vision of her sister killing Saul, his concern, because it was also very interesting, because as she's telling him this, his back was to her, and he was facing the camera. And I also noticed in his acting, there was a change where as she's telling him this vision, his concerned face about what just happened and what they just experienced, it changes where he almost looks angry, where he almost, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but there is, I mean, this guy that they got playing the stranger Khmer, I think he's an amazing actor, and I think he's quite respected in the community from what I've seen. So he's doing a good job, and that's why, like, at first I didn't like his character throughout the show, but now it's starting to grow on me. I like how it's the writing's helping too, right? Like, they're actually developing his character, and it's not just one-sided, right? Yes.
It's not just OP, Sith guy, right? It's like there's more nuance, and it's great to have a good actor that can to help that out. So yeah.
Absolutely. So then they say, okay, well, we'll go together. But once we get there, you're on your own, I'm on my own, whoever gets to her first. So they go on board the ship, and that is when we get the first big cameo that Master Johnny D was just struggling to not reveal it before we get there, is as they get on the ship and take away, we see a hand reach out from the cave and a face emerge from the shadows. And it is Darth Plagueis the Wise. And if there is any doubt about it, again, something I learned from New Rockstars, is if you listen closely to the musical cues,
we just lost Newhouse. Hopefully he'll figure out that his something's gone wrong with his Xbox controller, which is usually the culprit in these cases, and he will come back. But yes, Darth Plagueis does make an appearance. And I don't think I knew that he was making an appearance, because I did not know about his race, but Newhouse did. I guess he's some sort of some alien that's been known. So that's why. But so I luckily was able to watch this episode with Newhouse, and he was able to confirm that was Darth Plagueis. Newhouse, sounds like you're back.
Yes.
Cool. I just was I was just filling in time by saying how I wasn't sure who it was, but luckily I was watching with you, and that you knew because of the alien race, and that you were able to confirm for me at the reveal that was Plagueis. I forget if I kind of thought maybe it was him, but you definitely knew that it was him. So yes, so please continue your thoughts that you had before you cut out there.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know exactly where I cut out. Did you get the part where I mentioned that they used the same musical score?
No,
from the
did not.
Yes. So when they have him peeking out of the you can hear the
is that from the crazy light show that they're at?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. That's a very good performance of that to us. Definitely put that down in your resume in your skills section.
Right?
Can do the creepy light show music from Revenge of the Sith.
I'll remember that. There's lots implied here. I mean, lots of questions. First of all, does Khmer even know that Darth Plagueis is on this planet and watching him?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of assume they're in cahoots, but maybe not. That's a good question.
Well, okay, as I've stated before, I have not read the Darth Plagueis novel, so a lot of my information is coming secondhand. So from the record, I will state some of the things that I say here I might be incorrect about, because again, I'm just reading from articles and Wikipedia and other things that I've learned. But from what I understand, the way that the Sith Rule of Two works is you are not actually allowed to take an apprentice until you have slain your master. So before you, from what I understand, the way that this is established, so the impersonation, and also that this Darth Plague, again, that this planet, this unknown planet that they are on, it is heavily implied that, I can't remember the name of the planet, but in the Darth Plagueis novel, Plagueis and his master, Darth Tenebris, were on this planet that was rich with cartosis, that was an ocean planet with rocky shores, and they were there mining this cartosis when Plagueis killed his master, Darth Tenebris, and then that is when he would be looking to bring on an apprentice. Basically, my gut feeling is what's happening here is that Plagueis is still the apprentice. Tenebris is still alive at this point in time. I feel like this Plagueis listening in the shadows to this conversation of what's happening between Khmer and Osha. I think this is Plagueis learning about how the Force Witches use the midichlorians to create life, and that is how Plagueis learned about it. That's the story we're getting with the Acolyte. I think that's kind of like this. That's what another one of the points of doing this show and this timeline is it's setting all of that up. One piece of evidence that I do have to kind of back up my feeling that Plagueis is still the apprentice and Tenebris is the master is you do not get your Sith name until you've become the apprentice. And the proof of this is Palpatine. After Anakin makes the switch to the dark side in Episode 3, that is when Palpatine anoints him. From now on, you are the Sith Lord Darth Vader. So earlier in this episode, when Saul first met Khmer, he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I don't have a name." The reason he doesn't have a name is because he is not officially a Sith apprentice yet. You don't get the name until you've become an apprentice.
Oh, okay. So that would show that is in connection with him? With Plagueis?
So that, at least at this point in time, he is not officially Plagueis' apprentice.
But he knows Plagueis.
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure.
Yeah. Right? So I'll drop. Sorry, you finish your thought, and then I'll drop some crazy thought.
No, I mean, basically, this is what I know, and this is what, based on the continuity. I'd be curious to see what impression you got when you're not being influenced by outside.
Oh well, I mean, my impression was, it Well, okay. So just for funsies, I'll drop. I don't believe in this conspiracy theory. I just thought it'd be fun to share it as an idea. Is that basically what going into the show when you first told me about this show is that yeah, we thought it was going to be like the saga of Plagueis and the beginning of Palpatine's story, right? And it seems like they're setting that up for the second season. That so we thought it was going to be in the first season, but it ended up being the second season. I think that was always on the books, but I think a funny conspiracy theory is that they weren't intending to do that, and then they got a lot of backlash, and they were like, "Oh God, we got to do what they wanted to do." And it's like I have this like idea that okay, let's quickly get somebody dressed up in a Plagueis outfit and do a quick shot of him peeking out of a cave, and like they did that 5 days before the episode because it looks kind of like they kind of might have done that.
I would not say
to save the show, but I don't believe that. I just thought it was a funny conspiracy theory to share with the world, and maybe some people will. Well, maybe people already said that, but because you could have easily done that, right? Because there's no you could have easily shot that cave scene like 2 days before the episode went out, right? And so I had this humorous thought of them frantically being like, "Let's patch the show up."
Because that angle that they showed Plagueis, that was the same angle that was shown earlier in the episode when Kamir and Osha were talking and you saw the water behind them. So, I mean, technically, they could have taken that same shot and just removed them.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the reason why is because for some other reason, there's like fun conspiracy talk and thoughts are going around the world right now. So I was like, let's just apply it to Star Wars. But actually, with conspiracy theories, as with any, I've told you this before, Newhouse, I always like to believe reality first and just have conspiracy theories just as a backup, just for funsies, and also in case that is the truth. But I'm going to go with that. The reality is that, no, they had this already planned, and I think it makes sense. I think it's actually good that they took a season to build up, and then there'll be more payoff of this stuff in season 2. I just thought it was a funny idea. So anyway,
it's a fun conspiracy. I mean, my argument would be that no, it's not. That it was obviously always planned that Plagueis was going to be here in this. Because the whole choice of setting Kamir's base on this planet
lines up with the books and all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. That would be recognized by the fans of the continuity. So yeah, I mean, it's a fun little theory, but I do not.
All right.
Stock
so I don't take it. I don't take other. So, but I did want to get the idea out just because that's what I like to do sometimes. But let's move on. I think that's about it. I mean, I think he's there. They're basically like I said.
The other thing that I will add is that when you see his face emerge from the shadows. I mean, he is obviously a CGI. I don't think that was physical makeup. It was CGI. But they did take the effort to put in the animation with his eyes and squinting as they're taking off. So I kind of like... it could go one of two ways. It could go that he is working with Kamir and that he is planning to eventually overthrow Darth Tenebris, and that he's lining up Kamir to be his apprentice. And so the fact that they show him squinting, which could be interpreted as like he's angry, is that Kamir didn't know he was on the planet at that time, and he sees Kamir taking on his own apprentice, which would not be good for him eventually because of the way the Sith, the rule of two is, where you only have the master and apprentice, and the apprentice will eventually kill the master and become the master and take on an apprentice. So that it could be that, or the other interpretation could be is that he was sitting there listening to them, and that is how he learned about how the vergence on the Force
that's a good theory too. That's a good theory too. I like that theory as well.
So yeah, it could go either way there. So they go to take off to Brendok. So now we got to catch up with what's happening with Saul and May on his ship. Because next time we see those guys, their paths will cross with them. So May has Saul on the ship. He is telling telling May. He's starting to tell May about what happened on that planet. He manages to spit out that they aren't twins, they aren't even sisters, and he's about to tell. I get the impression he's about to tell her exactly what they are. Whether I feel like are they a Force dyad or what? But meanwhile, May had been using Pip, and she got herself out of the restraints, and right when Saul is about to tell her what he thinks she is, she uses the Pip to stun Saul. He falls back. She runs into an escape pod. It's actually not an escape pod. It's an escape vessel. It's a smaller vessel, and she jumps out of the ship and she goes to take off. Saul recovers quickly, gets into his ship, and he follows her in. And we have a really awesome scene. I really like the effects, the music. I thought she enters inside one of the rings around the moon of Brendok, and so we have a really exciting chase scene throughout these rings.
That was beautiful stuff, and that was. I mean, they say this show costs $180 million, so I'm curious about how much went into those shots, which is fine if they spend a lot of money. That's great, but I mean, hopefully they didn't spend a lot of money, because then I'd want to see more of that stuff. If our computers can generate stuff like that all the time, just do all that do that all the time, because it was so good.
But the funny thing is, despite how awesome the sequence was, all of those issues and problems I had with this episode all happened during this sequence.
Okay. How many times have you seen that sequence?
I've watched this episode 3 times now.
Okay. All right. So, lay it all
out.
out.
You and Jedi Master Miltron 3000 the night it aired. Last night, Jedi Master Cunning Ryan came over, and I watched it with him, and then I watched it again one more time before we record this here today. My 2 big issues are, as Saul is chasing May through those rings, he's using a targeting computer. To me, it's not clear what he's trying to do. Was he planning on shooting her? Well, I don't know what he was trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, I don't. There was so much going on that I was like, oh, cool. Targeting computer looks like the old school Star Wars New Hope targeting computer. That would make sense, right?
Right.
Where it's like old 70s graphics, like computer graphics.
Well, because they actually even use the exact same sound effects from Darth Vader's TIE Interceptor in A New Hope when they're doing the trench run and Luke is about to fire, and for Darth Vader, I have you now, and you see his X and you hear the and then all of a sudden.
Yeah. It was a great scene. The only thing I could think of is he was just trying to take out her engines, but not destroy the ship, right?
That's a possibility. However, before he can do this, that goddamn weasel, pardon my language, I'm sorry, but
worst character in the whole show, definitely.
He sabotages the ship. Saul is about to do whatever he's trying to do to stop May, but meanwhile, Basil sees what Saul is doing and that he's chasing May,
the only explanation
wires out.
Yeah, the only explanation I can think of that just to make it tolerable is that Plagueis just mind controlled him from afar. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know what his motivation was, other than he was forced mind control.
The only other thing I can think of is because he knows that May is not Osha, right? I was starting to think
I don't know what the hell's going with that character.
Maybe he thought Saul was going to kill Osha and he didn't want her to die. So yeah, it's
just an annoying, stupid, lost. Like, if you're gonna make a cute animal, make a cute animal, not an annoying, ugly rodent. Yeah. It's just So I don't know.
Make logical story choices with the character. I mean, I have no problem with the character design and all. I get that. It's just the choices that this character has made throughout this show.
If they're going to make him, if they're going to do the Plagueis mind control, I don't think there's any evidence of what his motivation was, right?
No, none.
So I mean, if you're going to do it, Plagueis mind controlled him, then you should have an establishing shot of him looking like he's getting
the Plagueis mind control.
He's getting mind controlled, right?
Plagueis has nothing to do with this.
There's no evidence whatsoever. He just does it, and then there's no resolution. So it's a question mark. So I don't know what if anybody else has any theories about what his motivation was, because it's so not clear to me. That's why the only explanation I can think of is that Plagueis mind controlled him, or else he's I don't know. Why else would he do that?
Of all the crap that this show takes, and all of the BS that people complain, like I see people say, "Oh, she said go to hell. There is no hell in Star Wars." Well, did you have a problem when Han Solo said it in The Empire Strikes Back? My point being, of all the things that people complain about with this show, they're not complaining about the things that would have valid criticisms, in my opinion. They're just complaining because
they're too busy.
That's where the clicks are. That's where the clicks are. That's where the right. Like it just.
Anyway, yeah. So that was You gotta. Why did he target her, and why did Basil do his stuff? Yeah. Anything else? Any other?
And my final complaint, and this might just be because I'm already so thrown off because I was confused about what Saul was trying to do with the target computer, and then I wasn't happy with how Basil, for no explanation that I can conceive of in my mind, sabotaged it. So he sabotages the ship. Saul loses power or whatever. He loses control of the ship, and he ends up smashing into May's ship, which also takes May out. And this is my final complaint criticism. And from this point, May, from outside the atmosphere, loses power and control of her ship, flies through the atmosphere, but she still manages to land the ship in a way that's safe enough for her that she doesn't get hurt or knocked out, and she's able to walk away from the crash.
Well, I thought she slowed the ship down enough that she could do it.
I mean, when I watched it again today, like, it was hard for me to discern. I felt like she didn't have power, but she was still able to
or maybe she used the force.
Dynamics of the ship. Maybe she used the force. And like I say, it's very likely I'm just being extra critical, just because the events leading up to that point, I was already thrown off. So,
okay.
So yeah.
I thought that was cool. I mean, I felt it was reasonable enough for me to think that. I mean, and you can survive. I mean, that crazy landing they survived in Revenge of the Sith, where one of my favorite lines from Ewan McGregor, another happy landing. I thought it was just another happy landing.
Right? Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
So yeah, no, the only thing that confused me was Basil. And Basil, I just don't like him, so I was like, whatever, another dumb Basil scene. Basil scene. Just get him off the screen, please. I don't want to see this dumb weasel again.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, luckily we don't again until pretty much the end of the episode. So yeah. Okay. So that's the end of my criticism. I guess we can move on to what happens next in the story, unless you got anything.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay. So now we have May and Saul are both on the planet. Saul has returned to the mining facility where the witches were, where everything happened 16 years ago, and he's trying to find May. As he's walking around, he's experiencing force echoes and remembering everything that had happened the last time he was there. Meanwhile, we switch back to Kamir and Osha, who have arrived on the planet. They get to outside the gate, and Osha has the line where we need to fix the controls. It's the only way to get inside the building without climbing. And we hear Kamir in ADR line say, "Are you sure?" And she turns around, and he's pulled the Batman. He's gone. Like, where did he go? What happened? So, I'm going to quickly point out here, I think, again, I still think, even though we haven't seen it in both perspectives of the flashback, I still maintain my belief that Kamir, in one form or another, was on that planet 16 years ago. My evidence being that he had the bark from the tree that he was able to create the poison with that May used to kill Jedi Master Torben in the second episode. So to me, that's my evidence that Kamir was there. And also the ability to disappear into thin air, that is something that we saw. I assume that's kind of what was happening when Saul killed the mother. We also saw Mother Kirill do the same thing in the last episode, where she's there and she starts to dissipate in this black smoke, but and then she says you should. So her physical form has disappeared, but she still is able to communicate vocally, because she says you shouldn't have brought him here, and Torben says, "I have fortified my mind against your attacks," and she's like, "Not you," and that's when the reveal was that Kalnaka showed up. So my suspicion is that Kamir did the exact same thing that Mother Coral did in that scene. As Osha was concentrating on fixing the console so she could open the door, I think Kamir disappeared into the black smoke, because he even had the one line. He's like, "Are you sure?" And that's when she turns around. So his body has already disappeared, but he's still able to vocally communicate with her, because he says that line, "Are you sure?" So that to me is the exact same thing that we saw Mother Coral do in episode 7. So to me, that's more evidence that there is a connection between Kamir and this witch coven in some way that, we're not going to get an answer for.
Did you think that Coral might be Kamir? Like
that was my theory going into this episode.
That's right.
Is that Mother Coral was able to do the essence transfer. Now
that she was even Plagueis, I thought maybe I forget. But it could be she's not Plagueis, but she's still doing that same stuff.
Well, okay, I did see an interview with the creator, Lena Head, or what's not Lena Headland? Is it Lena Headland? Yeah, Lena Headland. So she was asked the question, what happened to Mother Corell? Is she dead? And the creator of the show said, no body, no death. And if you want a clue as to what happened to her, look at her species, and you'll probably be able to figure it out. Now, Mother Corell is the Zebrak, right? That's the same race as Darth Maul. Yeah. Now, this is actually getting interesting. Now, we're going to diverge away, do a little bit of theory here before we get back to the rest of the episode, because there's not going to be a reason for us to talk about this again as we get through the episode, so I'm going to do it now. So her communicating, Lena Headland, that Mother Corell did not die, that she's still out there, and if you want to know where she is, look at her species, okay? So, as I said, she's a Dathomir, so that means she is from a Zebrak, sorry. So she's from Dathomir, okay? Now, Dathomir is the same planet that the Night Witches live on, okay? And we know now from Ahsoka that they did not originate on Dathomir. So the original inhabitants of the planet Dathomir are the Zebrak species, the species that look like Darth Maul. But at this point in time, they're basically a slave race to the Night Witches, who are the political power in control on Dathomir. They control everything. That is how Palpatine actually got Darth Maul. Is that Darth Maul? The Mother Talzin, she was the leader of the Night Witch at the time of the Clone Wars. When Darth Maul was born, she recognized that Darth Maul was strong in the Force, and she offered Maul to Palpatine as kind of a we use the dark side, we use the Force, but we're not interested in taking over the galaxy. We're just doing our own thing here, and here is an offering to you for peace. You take Darth Maul, and you just leave us alone and let us do our witchy stuff. So that's what's been established in the continuity.
Yeah. Okay.
So Lena Headland is hinting that she has gone back to Dathomir to be with the Night Witches, who are not from that planet. They are from the planet Peridia, which is on the other side of the galaxy, which is where all that stuff happened in Ahsoka. So just for my own sake here, I find this is tying in what Filoni is doing with his stuff that's taking place 150, 160 years later. So I think this is evidence that the Night Witches, now this is strictly theory, there's no actual evidence, but I think Filoni is tying in the Night Witches to the gods of Mortis. I know I mentioned to you earlier, the rumor is that they are doing casting for Abeloth. She is what they consider the mother of the Mortis gods, and that the Night Witch, who they worship and who they devote their power to, is this Abeloth character. So I think that's all just a neat little way of tying this all in to whatever the grand master plan is for Star Wars in this era that's now under the control.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Now, I know this show has always been kind of independently been kind of built over the years, but I mean, Headland and Filoni must have had meetings together in the last year to discuss stuff, right?
Yes. I can't remember what exactly it is, but I do know I saw. I can't even remember. This was a while ago, but I did see there are things that Headland put specifically in the show because of her conversations with Filoni.
Yeah.
So this show was conceptualized without him, but he was involved in the creative process. Maybe not right from day one, but after he was appointed.
Well, and as he's been kind of like. I mean, he's always kind of been building this kind of, I guess, empire, as you would call it, in his own sectors of the Star Wars galaxy. But he's getting more and more power, so he's moving on up. So he's kind of the big boss in a lot of ways, more than he was a couple years ago. So it makes sense for him to be like, "Hey, Leslie, let's have a chat because I'm this guy now in the Star Wars business universe, right?"
Right, and I do. The one person. I mean, Filoni would have to answer to two people, I would imagine, right? He has to answer to Kathleen Kennedy and then Bob Iger, right? Those are probably the two people that can. And I know Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of flack in the community. My issue with Kathleen Kennedy, and this goes to the sequel trilogy, is it's funny. It's kind of ironic how it can kind of be like the theme for Star Wars, where like good intentions, like for example, Saul. Like he had the best intentions. His intention was he thought these children were under threat from the witches and he wanted to protect them. And that's why he did what he did and the whole reason of the show. And I feel like Kathleen Kennedy is the same thing, because I feel like the biggest flaw with the sequel trilogy is she gave the directors too much control. She let Abrams do whatever he wanted, and she let Rian Johnson do whatever he wanted, and that led to a discombobulated trilogy where things didn't really line up and make sense, where you had one thing established in one movie, and then the next movie came along and goes, oh no, that's not what it was really this. And then the third movie was like, no, it wasn't really that, it's actually this, right? So I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is really ever going to say no to Dave Filoni, because the way I view Kathleen Kennedy is she gives the creatives too much control and too much power. I feel like there were times where she should have said no to Rian Johnson while he was developing The Last Jedi, but that her whole thing was that she wanted to have the smartest, most talented people doing that and to do their own thing. So,
well, whatever. I think she wasn't capable. She's no Kevin Feige. So I mean that's what I mean. Your analysis.
That's exactly the opposite. You're right. She is no Kevin Feige, because the rumor with Feige is he doesn't allow that creative freedom, and even if he does allow it, he lets them do it while they're filming. And this has actually been documented with a number of directors. Is they think they're making one movie, and when it comes out, it's not the movie they made at all, because once the direct photography is done, Feige takes that shit and he molds it all together to make it. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's how we got the Marvel that we have now. But it's at the sacrifice of the creative control by the people making the shit. Whereas Feige is the ultimate creative control, and he'll take your movie and he'll cut it up whatever he wants to make it work in the Marvel universe so it all makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Feige's process, so right. He's got risks too. It's got risks too. It's problematic. It's not perfect. But I mean, the thing is, he's got that through line vision and he was able to he had that, whatever, that good taste to keep things in line enough that, MCU has definitely been far more successful than Star Wars in the last 10 years, right? So I think it's a good explanation to, I don't know, I guess a sympathetic view of Kathleen Kennedy, and I gotta agree with that take. That makes sense as a take, but it comes down to, is she the right person for the job? I don't think so. I think you need someone who's gonna be not gonna have that tougher vision and have those through lines, and Filoni I think has the potential to be an improvement. So yeah, I mean we can say, oh, she had best intentions, but whatever. Yeah. The results are not there.
I mean, my point kind of got lost. I don't want to come across.
I want to go back to Saul though, because Saul,
Kennedy sympathize. But I feel like Kathleen Kennedy has recognized this, and that's why she gave Filoni that job. I think Kathleen Kennedy recognized that that's not her strength. Her strength is not. That's why she gave Abrams and Rian Johnson so much freedom, and she recognizes now that was a mistake.
Well, I think Iger's got to do. I think Iger's got to do something about Kathleen Kennedy. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah.
But back to Saul, because you did bring up Saul. I think Saul, again, we were talking last episode how there was this instincts he's got where there's something special about these two. Now, so back to what I was talking about OSHA before, how there's an acceleration for a character, and yes, getting the spoilers out. At one point, I was like, "Is this too fast? Are they moving this character too fast?" I was like, "No, it makes sense because they are the same person. It's this dyad, as you say. They are this special unit now, this special thing that exists now that was created through this like fusion of crazy force powers, with like the witch side and all this other stuff. And yeah, like they're these intense beings of the same person, and so that's why there's this crazy switch in positions and takes. And so I think back to Saul, I mean he just felt that there was something. So when he said that when he was younger, he obviously didn't realize they were the same person. It seemed like he had dwelled on that. He saw the evidence at first when he was younger, but he didn't know what he was seeing. And then 16 years later, it seems to be he's right. He gets it, and he's about to explain it, and then he cut him off. I think he eventually explains it more. Is that correct? Am I recalling that correct?
Okay, well, that's
he does before he gets okay.
He
Spoiler,
says that
spoiler.
the
He
same
gets
person,
killed.
but he says he doesn't understand why or how. He says he knows that they're the same person, that they weren't sisters, that they weren't twins, that they were the same person, but he doesn't know how or why.
Okay.
And the whole reason why I'm totally jumping ahead. The whole reason he's been lying about it the whole time was he felt that without May, there was no proof that they could use to show that these two beings were from the same person, that they got split into two separate entities, and that is part of the reason of why he justified lying all of these years.
Okay.
So yeah.
He's been through a tough 16 years, that's for sure, and he's kind of getting a bit more conclusions in his mind, but obviously not fully. And poor bastard doesn't get to see the end of it, unfortunately.
Yes. No, he doesn't. So yeah. So let's get there. So yeah, where did we leave off before all of this? Saul was walking around trying to find May, having echoes in the Force. I've gone off my notes, so
I think eventually he gets in a fight with.
Yeah, because he's still looking for May, and eventually Kamir finds him. Kamir finds him first, and he comments, "What a good team we make. Thank you for bringing her back to me." I kind of get the impression he's also talking about driving her towards the dark side of the Force when he says, "What a good team we make."
Like, yeah.
He would not have been able to do that on his own without all of the stuff.
Well, because he started to awaken her Force back, right? Like he started to she started to get her Force powers back when she was hanging out with Saul, right? Yes. And then so yeah, it's interesting that Kamir says that because we were talking earlier how is he shocked at her path, or is he embracing her path, or was it always known that was her path, right?
Right. Yes. So yeah. So then they have they start their big fight,
which is really good. That was some great lightsaber battling, I must say.
You know what? Because I've watched it a few times. It is awesome. And if you would have asked me in the past if I wanted to see wire work in Star Wars, I would have been like, no. Because when you say wire work, I picture like The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, right?
Yeah.
But the way that they utilized it here, like the impression,
I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice it.
Well, they use it in slow motion moments too, right? Like I think that's the key is not the wire work in a regular speed where it looks like they're doing things that are completely impossible, but to have it slow. Like the first is Saul falls back from the bridge, and I love how they make the point of showing his eyes don't leave Kamir the whole time. Like
I thought that was great.
Fight. Yeah, great. And they're flying the way that they land, and then a little bit later on, there's the one part where they go into the slow motion and the wire work as Saul does kind of a bicycle kick against Kamir. That was awesome. And meanwhile, I'm good
to go with that new house. I'm good to go to new house. You know how they eased us into it though, right? Two Asian actors were doing it.
Is that racist?
Probably, but it's the truth. It's the truth. It is a form that we're used to seeing in Asian movies. So they eased us into it, and that's probably why we were more accepting of it. But I think they should use any race to do it. Right?
And to be honest, it fits. I mean, Star Wars was made to be.
Well, they were able to demonstrate it.
Samurai films, right?
Because Saul kind of he was probably I forget the actor's name, but he was probably raised in that kind of style. And he was like, I know how to do this as an actor, right? Because he was fantastic. I wanted to get. I didn't end up doing it because he died. So I was like, well, I don't want to have Saul in my image for the episode. But there was this image where he has this face, this determination as he's falling backwards, and he nailed it. His face, the acting, it was so good. He basically just showing everybody how you do it, right? So. Yeah. Any race can do it going forward, and I think it's acceptable to do in Star Wars. Hopefully, they don't overuse it. That would be my concern is if they overuse it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But his performance throughout this entire show,
which is why I was really bummed out that they killed him off. I was pretty bummed
because I would have loved to have gotten lots of shows and episodes, movies with this character and this actor. I can see why. Even though the guy didn't speak any English, they wanted him.
It got better over time. I'm sure he was learning.
I didn't have a problem with it at all.
He was probably actually learning English as he did the show, and he's probably much better at English now, and he would have been fine a year from now, right?
Absolutely, right. So meanwhile, while this is happening, juxtaposed with what's happening there, Osha and May, they finally get their meetup. They're in the what was their childhood bedroom when May finally catches up with Osha. They have another big talk where May is trying to tell Osha that Saul is the one that killed their mother, that he's been lying to her the whole time. And in the meanwhile, you do see Osha is just getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And it's like she's not even listening to what her sister has to say at this point because she's being consumed by anger and rage. And they get into a fight. And as awesome as that lightsaber fight was, I felt like this was a pretty good fight too. It's not a lightsaber fight. It's a strict martial arts hand-to-hand combat. Just the way that they pulled it off, since you have only the one actress playing the two characters, and I thought they did a great job. I thought
yeah. I thought it was a great fight too.
There was no point where I was like, oh, you can tell that this actress isn't her and that this is a stunt double. Like, no, I thought they did a great job. And I also liked how they showed that the character was the same person throughout their movements. Like, the first half of the fight is they're both doing the exact same thing, right? And very well thought out, well written. It was all of that was great.
Yeah. No, great choreography in this for both fights. I agree. By the same choreographing team, I'm guessing, right? So.
And also, Star Wars is kind of infamous for their the way they cut scenes. Like you have Lucas did a lot of that back in the original trilogy, where you had the wipe. Where a wiper goes across one way. He would also do the circular cut.
Yeah. I felt it was getting a little too much of that, but whatever. I didn't notice it that much this episode.
The cut they did in the fight, where it goes from Osha and May, and then they go to this where they're kick, and they do this kick where their legs are crossed, and they do that cut to that point of the fight where the lightsabers are crossed. I just thought that was an awesome cut. I've watched the episode 3 times. I've probably watched that 5-second sequence probably 10 times.
Yeah.
Just because I really liked how they do that cut. And I'm also going to add, so when they come back here, and the lightsabers are locked. I mean, one of my favorite things about Star Wars has always been this. I mean, everybody loves the sounds of the lightsabers, right? Like when everyone growing up as a kid, they
yeah.
the lightsabers. And I thought the sound engineering during this battle, especially when their lightsabers were locked, and it was almost like the lightsabers were screaming at one point. Where what's actually happening in that scene is Kamir managed to get his hand around Saul's wrist that has the lightsaber, and Kamir is trying to force the lightsaber against his helmet because we know that the helmet is cortosis and it will short out Saul's lightsaber if it makes contact. So that's actually what's happening at that part there, is Kamir is trying to use all of his strength to get Saul's lightsaber to touch the helmet, sort of short out so that he can get the advantage. But it does not work. Saul manages to get out of that. And then we have this awesome moment where Kamir does a double lightsaber throw.
And again, that was good.
And the amount of this guy is powerful in that Force, because the amount of concentration that he has, because when you throw your lightsaber, you have to be using the Force to make sure it stays activated. Because if you take your thumb off of the lightsaber is going to turn off. So not only when you throw a lightsaber, you got to be using the Force to throw and direct the lightsaber, and you have to be making sure that the lightsaber stays activated while it's not in the hand. And so the fact that he's controlling 2 lightsabers while doing this, and also starts a run and advance to attack Saul at the same time, it's like, whoa, this guy is powerful. However, then you get one of my favorite moments in the entire series, when Saul puts his lightsaber down and does this awesome Tai Chi force repulse move. I'm not even going to bother trying to describe it. But
it was cool how powerful they showed that Kamir was, but Saul was really good too. Like Saul, in the same way how the Carrie-Anne Moss was the witches were crazy powerful, but she's got her the higher level Jedis have pretty cool tricks too, right? I always like that. So Saul was so I forget, the Tai Chi, is that how he bats away the lightsabers, or does he bat it away with his lightsaber? I forget.
No, he puts his lightsaber down and then he does this kind of Tai Chi thing.
Oh, to deflect them, right? Yeah.
His arm, and then right as Kamir and the 2 lightsabers are about to come with him, and then he puts his arms out and it does this Force 360-degree force repulse move where the lightsabers get blown away, Kamir gets blown away, And then like you get this awesome shot when he's done, and Saul looks up and then pulls out his lightsaber and turns it on again, and you're just like, man, this guy is so awesome. And like Saul has been off balance for most of the show, so I really like how I get the impression that he's kind of come to terms with what he's done, and so he's not as off balance at this fight. He's a lot.
He's in his zone, and yeah, I mean, like Jedi defensive powers are super slick, right? Like they're
exactly right.
they're as intensely good as the dark side offensive styles, right?
Yeah, and Saul's an emotional guy. I mean, the whole reason the show is because of the emotional attachment he felt to those children when he saw them. So he's an
the Jedi
guy.
always get that kind of extra emotion to help them out in times, right? Like Obi-Wan did it often. Took out Maul, took out Grievous. I think he's a lot more calmer. But still, Ewan McGregor, you know, he's able to show a little bit of that intensity when he needs to go that extra little bit to one up the opponent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Saul finally gets the upper hand. Kamir has his lightsabers. There's a little bit more fight after that, actually. I forget, because Saul does manage to cut Kamir's lightsaber in half after that. So now he's got the total upper hand. Kamir is defenseless. He actually takes his helmet off. I'm thinking he's going to die. So he's hoping if he takes his helmet off and Saul has to look him eye to eye, that Saul might not be able to kill him. Because Saul did say, I will do what it takes to destroy you, because he recognizes that he's evil, right? So I think he's thinking, even though he's defenseless, Saul is like, at this point, he's like, I don't care if this guy's defenseless. Like, he needs to be put down. He's too much of a threat, of a danger.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of why he takes his helmet off at that moment, hoping that if Saul looks him eye to eye, he might not be able to actually kill him. But before we even get to that, May shows up. And for the first, she's been trying to take a lightsaber from these Jedi every time we've seen her in this episode. She finally manages. She does a quick little hand-to-hand, because Saul is so concentrated on Kamir, he doesn't see her come out of nowhere. She gets a few shots in and manages to steal the lightsaber. So now we have a helmetless Kamir, we have a lightsaberless Saul, and we have May. And Kamir's like, good job, May. Do it. Finish him off. And May refuses. She throws the lightsaber to the ground, and she is no longer looking for revenge.
Sorry, I forgot. Who said that again? Good job, May?
Kamir. Kamir says that, because Kamir thinks he's about to die.
Oh, yeah, okay.
May shows up.
Yeah, you're right.
A few shots in, steals the lightsaber, and now she's standing there with the lightsaber. So Kamir's like, good job. You did what you're supposed to do while you're my acolyte. Now finish him off, right?
Well, finish himself off, isn't it? Was that? No.
No, he is telling May to kill Saul.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, I was I haven't seen this in a few days. Yes, so yes, got it. Sorry, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's all fine. So she's like, no, I'm not going to kill him. I want him to confess. I want him to stand trial for his crimes. So she refuses to do it. So Saul begins to confess. He's like, and this is where he says, you guys aren't sisters. You're not even twins. You were created using the Force Virgins. You're the same person. I don't know how she did it. I don't know why your mother did it, but this is what you are. And May says, but you did it, didn't you? You killed my mother. And Saul finally, for the first time in the series, is yes, I killed your mother. And that's when we see Osha standing in the doorway. And for the first time, it's sinking in that, yes, Saul did kill her mother. Her sister, or whatever the hell she is, has not been lying to her this whole time, trying to cover up how evil she was. So it's finally sinking in with Osha that Saul is guilty. But she also says, why didn't you tell me? So she's hurt that he never told her that she killed her mother. And I think this is kind of what the theme of the whole show was. And it's not so much that he did that. It's the fact that he lied to her about it. Because she even says, if it was the right thing to do, why didn't you tell the Jedi? And his response was, well, I couldn't tell the Jedi. Without your sister, I couldn't prove that you're a Force that you were created with the Force versions and that you're the same person, and you were too old to be trained. If I took you back to the Jedi, they wouldn't train you. They'd take you away from me. I was just trying to do what was best for you. And then Osha says, just stop talking. But Saul doesn't. He's trying to use empathy to
I mean, I thought I was on Saul's side. I thought it made sense. I don't think he was. I think there was. If he had even had a chance to explain even more, it would have made even more sense. But she didn't give a chance. She just killed him, and that was kind of a disappointment. That was my thoughts.
It's not just that she killed him; it's how she killed him. But again, I want to reiterate. I mean, I kind of disagree. I feel like. I mean, what he did in the moment was out of fear. I think this is what the theme and the lessons of the whole show are. And that I think what it's saying to just people in general is that anybody can do bad things, like kill someone. And it's mostly because of fear. The whole reason Saul killed the mother is he didn't understand what was happening at that moment.
I think he was startled. I think, again, he was startled because you're not supposed to be, don't do things around jumpy cops. And he was startled.
Yeah. Well, I also think he was afraid too, because he was afraid not just for himself. He was afraid for that's what he kept saying. I'm afraid for these girls. They're being manipulated by witches using the dark side, right?
Yeah.
And when she started to turn into smoke, and he didn't understand what she was doing, he was again afraid that she was trying to kill the girl, so he killed her instead. Right?
Well, yeah. So is that him? Did he more or less say that? Is that what he said at the end? That's why he killed the mother? You might have said that. I might have missed that.
I'm not sure, but I got to finish my thought before I lose it, though. But so the moral is that anybody can do bad things, and you don't need to ruin your life because you did something bad. You don't need to be mad, or you don't need to fall but you need to be honest about it. And it's the fact that he spent 16 years lying about it. I think that's what the message.
Well, but he thought it was a noble lie. I think he thought it was the noble lie. He thought it was for the better good that he kept the lie up.
I disagree. I fundamentally think that the whole point of this show and what the message is your life is not destroyed.
Oh, Nuos got lost again. So hopefully he can fix that again. So he's if we can remember what he last saying is saying too bad we stopped midway, because I can't even piece together his argument. I guess that'll help for me to understand his argument. If I'm forced to piece it together live on the stream until he can figure out that he's lost his signal again. But if not, then I guess it'll be easy to win a one-sided argument, because he won't be able to defend himself, and I can just continue to say, Saul was okay to lie, and it was a bummer that Osha killed him, and I don't like Osha anymore. I don't really like his character. I guess maybe that's the point. She's now a villain, and then May becomes the hero that I guess we can cheer for. So that's my take, because by now I've already moved past his arguments, because he lost his connection, and that's what you get when you don't take care of your connections, folks. You can't win arguments, because you'll just disappear. All right, well, I will continue on then with the summary of the show. Now, I think what Nuos was doing is I think he was trying to keep one storyline going, because there was another storyline that was happening in the show. And that was the interesting facts of the politics of the, is it the New Republic? The High Republic, where we get to meet one of the politicians, which was, I recognize the actor because I'll have to see if Nuos remembers that this guy played this part. But he was the actor who played the Martian Manhunter in the Supergirl CW saga, which was I didn't see the whole thing, but CW, it's CW, but man, I gotta hand it to them that they did some amazing stuff with how they did some lofty DC storylines. And man, I really enjoyed watching that DC Crisis on Infinite Earths that they did in CW. It wasn't, of course, the most perfect Crisis on Infinite Earths, but man, they went for it and they pulled it off. They made it exciting, they made it interesting, and it's better than nothing. And it didn't suck. Like it was It was entertaining and it was great. So definitely was happy to see that the Martian Manhunter actor shows up to basically show this kind of politics that's going on with the High Republic. So so that was pretty cool too. And so I'm trying to remember what happens in that, but anyway, it's I guess they want to do some sort of investigation about the Jedi, and so the sort of bald girl. Hey, Noos, I've just been kind of doing the summary of the episode. So what I did is I moved to the different storylines. Because I remember you talked about how there's multiple storylines. So what I did is I moved to the other storyline and just started blabbing away about the politicians and the guy who was working.
Senator Raincroft.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. But I also I don't know if you heard anything what was going on, but it basically said, well, this is a great opportunity for me to try to rephrase Nuaus's argument so then I can get a better understanding of his argument. But I couldn't really do that. So I was like, well, the other side is that if you lose your sound, then it's a one-sided argument that I can easily win, which I did. And it just proves that if you want to win arguments, I said, the moral of the story is you have to make sure you have better sound system. Or else you lose arguments, which you just did. Unless you can remember what your argument was, then of course you can have a comeback.
Oh, I remember exactly what my argument was.
All right, you go ahead. You pick up where you were. You just start with your argument.
Where was I when I cut out?
The moral of the show is
how anybody is capable of doing bad things because of multiple reasons, fear, pettiness, whatever, but you have to be accountable and honest about it.
No, he was lying because he was trying to he was lying for a reason to help out the end. To help everybody out.
I fundamentally disagree because how much am I cutting out about the whole end of the scene with how we're getting into that third storyline with Venestra? How much of
we didn't get anything. We didn't get anything. So start from scratch.
Okay. So the whole point like the reason Osha doesn't forgive him and kills him isn't because he killed her mother. It's the fact that he lied to her for 16 years.
He lied to her for a reason. He was helping her. He was helping her.
Let me finish. And so at the end, Venestra, she decides to lie to the Senate about it. Venestra knows what happened on that planet. When she gets to that planet, she's using the Force psychometry. She's hearing the echoes of the past. She knows everything that happens. She even has that scene when you see it from Kamir's perspective where she's leaning down to Saul's body, and you're like, what the hell is she saying there? Like, what's going on there? It was kind of a weird scene. But then you get it from the other perspective when she's explaining to the Senate how 16 years ago, 4 Jedi went to this planet. There was an incident. All of the people on this planet died. Right, and then Jedi Master Saul has been lying about it for the last 16 years, and then when there was a possibility that the truth about what happened was about to come out, Saul couldn't handle it, and he went on a rampage and he killed all of these Jedi to keep it a secret what happened on this planet 16 years ago.
No, that was a lie.
And so that's what happened, okay? And then the final shot of the episode.
No, that's not what happened. That was her lie.
Well, yeah, so she's lying about it too.
Yeah.
The end of the episode is she goes and tells, the door opens, Jedi Master Yoda's there, and she's like, Jedi Master, we need to talk. The implication is she's going to go and inform Yoda about everything that happened. So
it's the same thing. It's another noble lie. They both were doing noble lies.
The reason the Jedi died is because of lying. If Saul hadn't
lied? What?
Shit it would have happened. And if
Saul lied because Osha killed him. She just killed him because she didn't want to listen. What do you mean the other Jedi? The other Jedi, oh, they lied because...
Jedi. That's the whole point of the show, is that the Jedi wouldn't have been wiped out if Saul hadn't lied about it, forcing Venestra to lie about it, forcing Yoda to lie about it. The entire reason that the Sith were able to come back to power is because everybody.
Oh, you're talking about the Jedi in the second part of the show, recent.
That's what I'm saying. The theme of the show is you can't lie.
Oh, you can lie. It's totally fine. It's totally fine.
He lied about. No. I fundamentally disagree with my.
Okay, so I forget. How did all the other Jedi die? I don't even remember all the other Jedi dying. Who killed all the other Jedi?
All of the Jedi.
Who killed them? I forget. I forget that.
The Emperor Palpatine and Order 66. All of
Oh,
that shit
sorry.
happened
Oh,
because
what?
everybody lied about
Oh,
it.
I thought you were talking about the Jedi that was on
I'm talking
Breadnock.
about the Jedi Order as a whole. And
Oh,
that's the entire
okay.
theme of this show is if nobody had lied about it, the Sith would not have been able to rise to power, and the Jedi would still be in control. That's what the fucking theme of the show is that you can't lie.
I think it was still okay for Saul to lie. I think it was still okay for Saul to lie. I think it was still okay for Saul to lie. I'm not sure if it's okay for Finestra to lie. We'll have to see how that plays out.
No, I don't think it.
Well, yeah, Finestra lying might be the problem. That's probably the problem, right? Her lie is the one I'm a little sus about.
Saul. If Saul hadn't lied about it, Finestra wouldn't have had to lie. That's the theme. That is what the theme is.
No, but if Osha had
and how it escalates and escalates.
What do you mean theme? Well, I'm not talking. I don't care about the theme of the show. I'm gonna actually judge it on what's going on with the characters, and I think Saul was okay to do what she was doing. If Osha had listened to him and not been a little brat and killed him, then Saul would have been still around, and he would have been a cool character we can see more of. But instead, I mean, whatever. They're trying to make her the bad guy, which is fine. That's okay. But I don't think Saul deserved to die, and I think she was an idiot for killing him. But I think that her and May are both kind of idiots because they're the same person. But now May's becoming the good version, and Osha's the bad version. But the May Osha character they're kind of a mess too. They've always been a mess. So yeah, I still think Saul was okay to lie, and it's kind of a bummer he got killed. But I mean, yeah, maybe if he had lied, he would have gotten killed, I guess. So yeah, it didn't work out so well for him. Anyway, we should probably move on because I think we're just going to end up yelling at each other more, and that's I'm sure that's exciting for a while, but.
Yes, no, we will move on. But I still fundamentally think, if Saul hadn't lied, that's the first chain of events that lead to the Sith being able to take power. It's not that Saul lying to Osha about killing his mother and lying to the Jedi. But it starts that chain of events where one simple little white lie ends up 130 years.
Do you know what? This sounds exactly like
Jedi.
what I've been seeing in the Degrassi Junior High episodes, where a little white lie suddenly gets out of control.
Right? Yes. That's
just like real life.
To me, that's the when you look at the great themes of what the point was. That is the theme. Is that?
Well, the theme is actually manifesting itself more to me now that you say it out, that we're talking it out loud more. Yeah, it is shows that the Jedi, they had this they're trying to run this kind of tight ship, but it just shows with the tight ship there's just things can just unravel, right? And that is you're right. That is what's happening. It's white lies. It's Saul. Is Finestra. It grows, and then they were doomed, right? And it's
Finestra lying to. Again, it also goes back into the fear part. Why is Finestra lying about it? Because she's afraid that the Senate will try and take control of everything.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So if Saul had not lied, Order 66 might not have happened. I get what you're saying there. I get what you're saying. So Saul was an idiot. So yeah, I've turned on Saul. Good thing he's dead. What a fool.
I do get your point of view. And I'm not saying that you're wrong either. Placed in his shoes, and I probably would have chosen to do the same thing and be worried about this little girl. Not, right? And so you're lying because you're trying to protect her.
Yeah.
Even if your cause is noble, that doesn't mean it's going to end up being okay.
Yeah, just like Kathleen Kennedy.
Just like Kathleen Kennedy. Okay, so we got a few more things we got to get in through here. I mean, I kind of jumped ahead to Yoda. There are a few more things that happen though after the big death scene. Oh, and by the way, when how I was saying how it didn't really make what was Finestra doing when she leaned down to Saul is that when she's lying to the Senate about what happened, it flashes back to that scene and you hear her lean down to him and say, "I'm sorry, my old friend." And the reason she's apologizing to the dead body is because she knows she already has decided that she's framing all of this on Saul because she's afraid of the Senate taking oversight over the Jedi, and so she's apologizing to him there. That's what that little scene, to me, that's how I interpret it.
Yeah. No, I think that's
I'm sorry that I'm going to have to
That's a fair interpretation. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So, but we still got a whole bunch of stuff going on this planet. Now, After Saul dies, then we do get to the cut to this other storyline. Because, yeah, we'll go back a little bit, too. Because there's Venestra. They got her on Coruscant. The Senator Ravencroft guy is showing up. And I really like his one line here, too, where he's like, let me check my notes here. I think I got to go back because we've been jumping all over. Yeah, so Venestra and Senator Ravencroft. So he's there because he heard about a murder investigation, and he's kind of worried about this.
Yeah,
and, Venestra goes on how she thinks that it's just one Jedi that was responsible for all of the Jedi that died, and the Senator right away, like multiple victims. Like as far as he knew, there was just the one victim, so he was surprised to hear that there was multiple victims.
Yeah.
I also know. I mean, I think this is setting up for the possible second season because it's hinted that there is history between this Senator and Venestra because he mentioned something about how traveling through hyperspace is an issue for her. So to me, putting that little bit of line there, that's showing the audience that these two characters have that they know each other. If he knows that traveling through hyperspace is an issue for her, they have a history together, right? But he's afraid about how the Jedi are trying to control something that's uncontrollable. And she says, the Jedi do not control the Force. And he says, I know. I'm talking about your emotions. So I thought that was that also kind of goes into the whole themes of the show and how fear can influence and destroy everything. Is because, through all the training in the world, your emotions is going to what leads someone to the dark side of the Force, as we will see later in this episode. So then we get to after all of the big fight, and Venestra and her team of Jedi arrive on the planet. They show the Jedi walking down the ramp, and then we get a quick close-up of Venestra's feet. And I thought that was a cool choice. Is her first step on the planet, and she stops in shock, and she lifts up her head, and she's like, You're alive. And then it cuts to Kamir. Kamir does the same thing where his head shoots up and he puts his helmet on and he's freaking gone. Because as we've already established that the Cartosis helmet, it hides kind of like their Force signature.
Yeah.
So once he realized, so this is implying that Venestra was his master and that they sensed each other in the Force as soon as she stepped on the planet. So he put his helmet on so that she couldn't register him in the Force anymore, and he books off out of there. So then we get May and Osha. They're trying to get out of this compound. May says to Osha, come with me. I know how to get out. And this is where we get the answer to one of the many questions that were still lingering up to this point. I mean, this episode did a good job of answering a lot of things, in my opinion. But the big thing was how did May survive that fall? When Saul was there and he had them both, was using the Force to keep them alive, but then he had to let go of May to save Osha. And May falls, and it hadn't been answered yet how May survived that fall. So we get the answer here, and it's a little bit of Luke Skywalker, Empire Strikes Back, when he fell down the air shaft and he ends up in an air vent. The same thing happened to May. She fell down the shaft, she gets sucked into an air vent, so she managed to survive the fall, and they now use this air vent to escape the compound. They meet up at the bunt tree that we've seen throughout this episode. There's an interesting bit of line of dialogue here where finally the two sisters have come to peace because this is the first scene that we've had with them together where they don't have issues with each other, where they don't believe each other. So they're finally getting their moment together. They repeat their little rhyme where 2 is 1, 1 is 2, I give you me, I give you you. May says, where did this come from? And Osha says to the other one, that's funny, I thought you made it up. So it's a little putting something out there to the audience about how do these girls know this nursery rhyme that they've been saying to each other their whole life when they don't even know where it come from. One guess I will take at it is that is actually the incantation that Mother Anicia used to split them into two beings.
Oh, yeah.
That little nursery, like that's the magic spell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's the impression I get from that. And then Kamir shows up out of nowhere, and he says, if I was able to find you, the Jedi will be able to find you. We got to get the heck out of here. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the big moment, too. So as Saul is dying, because Osha is using the Force choke, which I gotta admit, all throughout this, I'm kind of disappointed in myself that when they kept saying you need to kill a Jedi without a weapon to pass the test, I can't believe that not once did it not occur to me that, well, yeah, just use a Force choke.
Well, it didn't occur. It didn't occur to May either, because if you've never seen it, you don't know that you can do it, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I'll give you that there.
Yeah.
But
it's also interesting how we didn't think that ourselves either, right?
Yeah, right? Like, I can't believe that I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So as she's using the Force choke and suffocating the life out of Master Saul, we get a shot because she's holding the lightsaber, and it starts... Oh, and also, I'm also going to add, so this was the vision. So both Kamir and Osha misinterpreted the vision from the start of the episode when she was wearing the Cartosis helmet, where she thought she was seeing her sister kill Saul, but she was actually seeing herself. And Kamir also did not question it. And so I felt that's why he kind of turned on Osha. Because like I said, when she put on that helmet, he felt very concerned. And he was like, we got to get this, like, what's happening? I don't know we got to get this off. But then when she gets it off, and she's like, I had this vision, and that's when he's like stops being nice to her again and kind of gets into like bad guy. Was like, well, I'm going to go get your sister. I'm leaving you here, right? Where I felt like there was an attitude change there. But my other thing is this also, in my mind, it brought me up the question of Force prophecies. Like, for example, the prophecy of the Chosen One, of the one who is prophesized to bring balance to the Force. Now, my question to you, Jedi Master Johnny D, do you think most Force prophecies are based on Force visions? Like, at some point, some Jedi, while meditating in the Force, had a vision of the Chosen One who will bring balance to the Force, and that's where that prophecy came from.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. Right? I think that you could establish that as a rule of thumb. That it is it's vision. I mean, how do prophecies work in the real world, right? Is it visions? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll have to go into the deeper corners of my brain to remember any sort of religious history that I know of. But yeah, I mean, how else would you get a prophecy, right?
Well,
other
exactly.
than a vision, right? Unless I mean, I can't think of it just like manifesting itself as words in your brain without a vision. I don't know.
Right.
That's the only way I can think of, right? So.
And what I found interesting about that, and it might not have no significance or meaning whatsoever, but later on in the prequel trilogy, I believe it's in the third one, where Obi-Wan is talking to Anakin, and Obi-Wan says, well, is he not the chosen one from the prophecy? And Yoda has that line, prophecies, maybe misread it was. So it was kind of implied that maybe they misread the prophecy about the chosen one. So I just think it's interesting how at the start of this episode, Osha had the vision of what she thought was her sister killing Saul, but it was actually her. And so that's just a neat little storytelling showing that this was a possible prophecy, but it was misread. She had a Force vision, but she didn't understand what she was seeing, that it was actually herself that was killing Saul in the future. So yeah, like I said, I don't know if that has any significance. I just thought that was another neat little thing that was thrown in there.
Yeah,
and then the only other thing I'll talk about before we get to the end was for me, I thought it was awesome, was for the first time in live action, we got to see the bleeding of the Kyber crystal, because as Osha is suffocating the life out of Master Saul, we get a shot of the Kyber crystal that was exposed in the lightsaber, and we see it go from blue to start to turn into red, which is called the bleeding of the Kyber. And now this is something that is established in Star Wars continuity, that when you are a Sith and you want to get a lightsaber, you must kill a Jedi, and then you concentrate all of your anger and hate into the Kyber crystal in your lightsaber, which forces it to turn red.
Sorry, where's that from? That concept?
Okay, it's the first time it has ever been established in Disney continuity. It was actually the opposite effect. It was in the Ahsoka novel in 2016, where Ahsoka killed an Inquisitor, and she purified the Kyber.
Oh, so this is the reverse of it that they are showing in this show.
Yes, she took
Yeah.
it and she made them white by taking a kyber crystal that had been corrupted by the dark side and purified it. They were white. So that explained, they did that to explain why Ahsoka had white sabers in Rebels. Because if you watch the Clone Wars, she had a green saber all throughout Clone Wars. And then when she showed up in Rebels, her lightsabers were white all of a sudden. So they put the story in the Ahsoka novel about how she killed an Inquisitor and she bled the lightsabers to purify the kyber crystal. But then since then, there's also been other stories as well. There was a Marvel comic showing how Darth Vader got his Sith saber, and there was a scene in there where he bled the kyber crystal to turn it red. And there's a couple more examples of it. Oh, it's also was done in that Jedi Master or that Jedi game. What is it? Jedi Outcast.
Okay.
What it's called? The one that Johnny Master D's brother, Jedi Master Teacher guy. The game that he played. Yeah, Jimmy D. He played through that game. They also do a bleeding of a kyber crystal in there. So, yeah. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So you've seen the concept, and then you saw it delivered in an actual visual media, which is the core of Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's like that.
And just a little, like so many little touches, like when she actually activates the lightsaber and it comes out blue, and then like the red as it spreads out, and there's just. I noticed there's like a little wisp of smoke as the red overtakes the blue, and I just chef's kiss for me.
Like I said, there's a lot of good things in these last two episodes. Lots of good content, except for Basil. That was the one thing.
Except for Basil.
No more Basil in season 2. That's my recommendation.
So now we're at the end of the episode. They're about to go. Osha and Kamir are about. I saw someone say, "Well, why didn't May go with Osha and Kamir? Why did they have to leave her behind?" It's because. Logistics, plain and simple. Their ship was a 2-person ship. Even if they wanted to take her with them, they couldn't. And Kamir suggests that they could do a mind wipe. Now, I've seen some people talk. I wanted to talk to you about this specifically because I'm seeing a lot of comparisons here, or hearing comparisons about what the Jedi did to Revan.
That's right. And that was straight out of old KOTOR stuff. Right.
So when did that happen in KOTOR? Was that something at the end of the game when the
reveal? No, that's the beginning of the game. The beginning of the game is right after they've mind wiped them. So you are spoiler alert on KOTOR 1 is that
you don't actually see that. The game doesn't.
No, you don't see it. You don't see it, but it happens. Like chronologically, it happens right before you crash land on the planet.
Okay.
Because the battle happens above that planet, right? And it's the battle between Batista is using the Force meditation to help out Bastilla, and Revan's on the other side, and with Malak, and there's a fight on the bridge, and they are able to take out. Oh yeah, because I think Revan's on a different ship from Malak, so Revan gets knocked out because their ship gets blasted, and so the ship starts to crash. Well, there's like a jolt to the ship, right? So I think that's how he gets knocked out. And so then they have him, and so then they mind wipe him. So Malak just thinks Revan dies or has disappeared or whatever. So then he takes over, or he might have even set it up so that he tried to get Revan killed. He might have actually shot the ship himself. I forget. But the Jedi take Revan there, and they do a mind wipe on him, and then they have him. I forget why he ends up getting injected on the ship Bastilla, right? I don't think it was intended that she was going to crash land on the ship and get captured by gangsters, right? But I think they did it though. I'm pretty sure they did it during this battle, so it was a quick job. Whoever did it, I'm guessing it was the Yoda type character might have been involved because there was that Yoda species character that you interact with, right? But they straight up mind wipe him. During that battle, and then you crash land, or no, you wake up basically as your ship's getting attacked, and you've been implanted, pretty much 10 minutes later,
right?
Because I guess they thought, I don't know, I'm wondering, I forget why they would do that. I think they did it because they thought if Revan could be. Were they still intending him to help find all the star maps to get to the star killing machine thing? I'm guessing. I mean that part.
Why would they mind wipe him rather than just kill him? Right?
Yeah, they wanted to keep him around, and they wanted to probably. I think they were using him to find the star maps. It was their crazy way of doing that, leading to fun adventures for the players of the game.
Okay, so there is precedent in the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, you can totally do mind wipes. Yeah, it's totally totally doable. Totally been done.
In retrospect, I actually think that that's a brilliant idea to help explain why the Sith have been able to stay hidden for 1,000 years. Because anytime that anything has happened where they could possibly be discovered, well, you can either kill everybody or you could just do a mind wipe.
Yeah.
Right?
It's how the Men in Black do things.
Yeah, exactly. Total Men in Black style. So they do the mind wipe on May and Kamir and
yeah.
Osha,
I mean, now that you bring up the scenes, Nuance, I'm like, yeah, that is what is. It was a bit convenient. I forget. I'll have to see that scene again. I mean, I thought it made sense because now May can become the hero of the show. But yeah, like, why did they? I mean, I assume Osha still had some affection, and she didn't want to. As you said, there's not enough room on the ship, I guess. But
yeah,
she wanted to not kill her sister. But I forget. Like, so did May? Like, why did May to agree to that? What was May's?
Okay.
I forget. You have to keep.
Okay, I have this.
Because I forget.
Down in my note. I have this written down my notes, and this actually goes to what happened with Revan as well. Because I actually had because I wanted.
But she volunteered. She accepted. She accepted it. Revan didn't accept it. She actually was willingly mind wiped.
They're going to go because Kamir says, May, do you after everything that's happened, do you actually think the Jedi are going to let you exist? Like, he's basically saying, and then Osha says, the Jedi would do to you exactly what they did to our mother. So they're implying that they're going to kill her.
Yeah.
So, because of how much power she has. So that kind of got me thinking is if they didn't do her mind wipe and they just left her there for the Jedi to find, what would the Jedi do? If the Jedi managed to, say, capture Revan or capture some dark force using person who's strong in the force, who's too old to be trained, what is the Jedi protocol in that situation? Do they do a mind wipe like they do to Revan? Do they kill you? Do they lock you up? Well,
they were implying that they would kill her, right?
Well, that's what they think.
Yeah, So what would have happened if May had? I mean, they would have just imprisoned her. That's my sense.
Well, how do you imprison a person strong in the dark side of the Force?
Well, the only thing I can think of is if you remember in the Star Wars: The Old Republic playthrough, there was that one room where there was that person floating in some chamber.
Well,
and all these.
All these
people were sitting around meditating, so that's probably a prison. You basically have to have 3 prison guards who are Jedi, whose job is just to sit there and meditate and make sure that the Sith doesn't escape. Right?
Okay.
That's the way I can think of about it. And so yes, and so I still don't get why her being mind wiped was to her benefit, but I mean how it plays out is that it's harder to prosecute this person if they have no memory of what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd have to see that. I have to see that scene again to go. Wait a second. How do they convince her? Because I forget. There's so much going on, and by the end,
how they convinced her was that they told her that they told her that they would kill. They would do the same.
So
thing to you
why would being a mind wipe? How would a mind wipe help her? You won't remember. You won't have the brain capacity to feel the execution. I don't know. Finish it. Maybe you know.
Let's talk this out, okay? I mean, the dark side users are saying that the Jedi would kill you if they got a hold of you.
So let's mind wipe you.
You and I think the Jedi would just imprison them.
Wait, let's go from her mindset where she goes, they're going to kill me. But if I get mind wiped, I'll be okay? I don't get that.
Yeah. I think if you get mind wiped, okay, so now you don't know that you have force powers. You don't know how to access those force powers, so you're not a threat.
Okay, got it. So they will have sympathy on you.
They're not going to kill you, and they're not.
I do remember that. I do remember that now, Nuance. I do remember that. That's what the argument was, more or less. And so yes, thank you again for reminding me. Anyway, yes. So yes.
From their perspective, and why she would agree to it is like, okay, even if they don't kill me, I would spend the rest of my life in jail. I don't really want to do that either. Just wipe my mind so that I don't remember who you guys are. I don't remember that I had force powers. I don't remember how to access the force, blah, 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 blah. And then that way the Jedi aren't going to have an issue. Which, as we will see in the epilogue, that's exactly how it plays out, actually.
Well, yeah, she becomes a tool for Finestra, right?
Right? So. Yeah. And I mean, I think this...
And she's set up as being the potential hero of Season 2 if it happens. We'll get to that.
Absolutely.
That conversation.
Because after the big mind wipe, then so now we get into the epilogue of the show. I do appreciate how they did a quick shot of showing Pip, May's little and Osha's little droid that has been a reoccurring character throughout the 8 episodes. They do show a quick scene of where he gets shut down and put into a bag. So I like that rather than leave that hanging out there like, hey, what happened to her little droid Pip? No, they at least they give you a little bit of showing that no, he's been deactivated and he's put away in the Jedi somewhere. Then we do get the scene with Venestra and May, where Venestra is questioning her, like, what do you remember? And she's like, the last thing I remember is there was a fire. And so that's when it dawns on Venestra that her mind has been reset to when she was 8 years old. And then basically she says that she wants her to help her find Kamir. Her exact line is actually the same line that Obi-Wan said to Luke in A New Hope is, I had a pupil who fell to evil and the dark side. What was that exact line that when Obi-Wan is telling Luke about what happened to his father? He was a pupil of mine who fell to...
Yeah, it's more or less that. I can't remember the line exactly.
But anyway, the line that Venestra says about Kamir is the exact same line that Obi-Wan said to Luke about how his pupil had fallen to evil. And so she wants May to help her find Kamir. So that would be setting up, I'm assuming, a storyline for the possible second season. And then, yeah, there's not really much else to add because we already talked about how Venestra talks to the senators. She pins everything on Saul. She says how Saul and the 4 Jedi were on Brendok 16 years ago. Something happened. A bunch of people died there. They've been lying about it for 16 years. And when Saul was afraid that the truth was going to come out, he decided to eliminate everybody that was involved. But they caught him, and he's now dead. So they don't need to worry about it. We get one more shot. Then we get, again, this is another kind of homage to I'd say The Empire Strikes Back and to Attack of the Clones, is we get what we think is the final shot of the show where Kamir and Osha are standing on that unknown planet, and we get a shot from their backs looking out at the horizon. Just like on Empire Strikes Back, where we get the shots of Leia and Luke and R2-D2 and C-3PO from their backs looking out onto the spiral galaxy there. And it's the same thing in the Attack of the Clones, where the final shot is Anakin and Padme from behind looking out at the horizon on Naboo. Whereas episodes 4 and 6 and episode 1 and I don't remember the final shot of episode 3, but those are opposite, where those are face-on group shots where they've won the battle. So I thought it's very cool little keeping up with the thing where, like, episode 4, the rebels beat the Empire, we get the celebration scene, everybody's happy at the end. Episode 5, they lose, they get their asses kicked. The final shot is the perspective from behind our characters. Episode 6, they destroy the Death Star, everyone's having a party on Endor, we get the group shot face front. Episode 1, they kill Darth Maul. It looks like the Sith are dead. We get the group shot with the Gungan holding up the thing, everybody's face. The second shot, you know what? I think I made my point. It's just kind of like the movies where the good.
Yeah, but this guy this was not. Yeah, it's not a happy. I mean, it really wasn't a good ending for the Jedi.
No.
It's like it's like a good ending for the Sith type characters, and so yes, they get their own special happy ending.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's what you're getting at.
Kind of the movies where the bad guys win. The final shot of the movie is from a back perspective looking at the horizon. The movies where the good guys win, it's a front shot, it's a group shot of everybody celebrating and being happy. However, that was not the final shot of the episode, because after it cuts to black there, and I was expecting the credits, we get one more shot where the door opens up and we see Master Venestra go into the room. We hear her say, "Master, we need to talk," and that's when the camera pans down and you get the behind-the-head shot of Yoda. And like I said earlier, to me, this is implying that Venestra is going to tell Yoda everything that actually happened, since she lied to everybody else that happened, which implies that Yoda knew about the Sith going into the Phantom Menace, which I feel is backed up because you get that one shot in the Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon...
Windu and Yoda look at each other.
Yeah, and Jedi Master Cal I Mundi says, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. And then, like, Mace Windu and Yoda look at each other. But there's also one other thing that I haven't talked to you about, Master Johnny D, implying that Yoda knows all about the Sith. Because in the final scene of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, how I was talking about how they do that group shot, but when they're doing the burial of... Well, it's not a burial, where they burn Qui-Gon's body, because I guess that's what the Jedi do, is they burn the bodies, because we saw them burn Qui-Gon. We saw Luke burn Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi. And in this episode, we saw Venestra burn Saul's body. So the Jedi, they burn their bodies when they die. But during that scene in The Phantom Menace, we have Yoda talking to Mace Windu. Do you remember that? Do you know what I'm talking about here, Johnny D? He said,
Which episode?
Sith.
Oh, the Phantom Menace.
One.
Yeah, episode 1. Yeah. I know the scene. Yeah.
The Sith rule of two. There are only two: the Master and the Apprentice. Right? That's the line.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah. Which one was Maul? Was he the Master or the Apprentice?
Well, the question is, how the fuck would Yoda know that? The Sith haven't been around for 1,000 years because that rule was created 1,000 years ago. There's no way Yoda would know that that is a Sith rule unless he knows that the Sith exist. Because the last time...
Oh, he didn't know that because they wrote that down? They didn't write that down 1,000 years ago? The Jedi?
No!
So we got these Sith guys, and this is how they work. And then, they're gone now. So, but just so you know, this is how they were doing things 1,000 years ago.
At the end of the Jedi-Sith War, where Darth Bane was the last Sith left standing, he is the one who created that rule 1,000 years ago after the Jedi-Sith War. So there is, as Yoda is only 800 years old, Yoda was not alive when that rule was made.
Somebody could have written it down or told somebody, and then they passed it along. He could have been told that.
No, because as far as the Jedi know, the Sith are dead. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
So he knew it, but Mace Windu seemed to know it too. It seemed to imply that Mace Windu knew it too, then, right?
No, because it's Yoda telling that to Mace Windu, right? I mean, I have to watch the scene again to know.
Oh, okay.
Exactly
I always thought when he said it that Windu knew that too. It's not like Mace. Here's
like
how
Yoda
it works.
Communicating that.
Okay, because Mace Windu seemed to understand right away, and he's like, "Who was it, the Master or the Apprentice?" Unless Mace Windu just quickly grasped what he was saying. And
okay, you're right. I forgot about that. So I'm not sure, but I still don't think that changed. Like your argument, well, what if it was written down? It wouldn't have been written down because, as far as the Jedi are concerned,
nobody would have known about it. Is what you're saying? Because
Bane
created it,
was
and
1,000 years ago.
They never shared it.
Darth Bane created that rule.
Well, obviously Yoda figured it out at some time. So do you think he figured it out through Finestra and all this shenanigans, or did he figure it out before that?
To me, that tells me there's more story to be told.
Well, how about last thing? Remember how it was the voice of that mysterious person that they talked to on the intercom? And there was a person. They were of some significance, but we don't know who they were. And I said, his inflection sounds like someone's trying to do Ian McDermott, right?
Yes. And that I mentioned earlier how I watched the new Rock Stars. They also immediately were like, that sounds like the voice of Ian McDermott.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, continuity-wise, he should not be alive right now. But the show has apparently Darth Plagueis should not be alive right now either, and also the Jedi Master that Jedi Master Cal Mundi, the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years, who we saw earlier in this series. He showed up in the second or third episode. He also, by the old continuity, is not supposed to be alive at that time. So they have shown 2 examples so far of them changing the ages of characters. So I don't think it's completely ridiculous to suspect that maybe they're changing the age of Palpatine as well to make it work that he's alive at this point in time.
Well, we'll have to see. If we see more. Well, okay, so we should move on. You can have your last thoughts on the episode, but we should move on to the talk about the future of this story. My initial take is that it either goes to a new show, or if it doesn't, then they're gonna do something in comic books or books or something like that. But is there any last thoughts you have on the show before we move on to that conversation?
I mean, no, not really. Nothing that I haven't already said. I thought it was a great show. I'd give it a 8 out of 10 on the Jedi Master Ecom Newhouse scale. I give it an 8 out of 10. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible. It was.
I think it ended strong.
Good.
It ended strong for me.
It ended strong. I would love to see more with the characters.
I'd like to see another season. I'd like to see another season. I thought it merited another season.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
but we should discuss what you've been hearing about why it might not be another season.
Well, I mean, because the show is divisive. Now, okay, they say that the show is divisive. Like, oh, the Rotten Tomatoes score is horrible. Well, it was at 24% before the first episode even aired. Now, all I can say is I have my small community of friends that I talk to and people that I follow online. Like I follow, like, say, example, like that new rock stars that I've referenced a couple times. I follow Screen Crush as another YouTube generator. And then there's also a few podcasts that I listen to. For example, Blue Harvest is one of the podcasts I listen to. Steel Wars is another podcast I listen to. And Rebel Force Radio is another podcast I listen to. So my point being, all of the Star Wars community that I have been participating with and following for, say, the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started getting into all of this was when The Force Awakens dropped. That's when I started listening to Rebel Force Radio and Blue Harvest and Steel Wars. So that would have been 2015.
Yeah.
None of these people that I listen to have bad things to say about this show.
Okay.
So to me and my small circle / bubble.
Well, your community is of respected and knowledgeable and Star Wars fans, people who
Yes.
who have good deep knowledge of it, and
Yes.
and aren't going to get
all people that were fans of Star Wars before The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. So so it's a good caliber of critics. So that helps to kind of gauge the pulse, right, of the quality of the show from a Star Wars fan's viewpoint, right? Because if it was truly a shit show, I assume that some of them would say so. They would have a lot more criticisms of the show.
Yes.
And I'm
Or
guessing
if it
they
was
didn't
a
have
shit
that.
show, people wouldn't watch it, and they would be if you hate a show.
Well, yeah, that's what it goes down to is who's making the decision and what data points are they using? Are they using the Rotten Tomatoes score, or are they going to use the ratings? And where we know what the Rotten Tomatoes scores are, but where is the ratings at, right? Like how many people are watching this show? And and so I don't think you get what I've seen is that because I've been trying to look up the Nielsen stuff, they actually seem to be about a month and a half behind. So when you see the weekly results and the articles, Variety usually publishes them. It's usually back in June. Is like the last one I think was June, and it was in the top 10. So I mean, I think we're gonna I'm guessing Disney gets the information earlier than we do, but we're gonna know how it's been doing, I think, over the next month because Nielsen publishes them about a month behind, and so I'll be curious to see what those numbers are. But what have you been hearing from like if you've heard any rumors like we're executives or insiders at Disney saying the show might get canceled? What have you heard anything like that?
No, there's no rumors about that whatsoever.
Just hasn't been renewed yet, right? Like if it was a hit, like if it was a hit, they probably like sometimes they renew it by like midway through the season, right?
Well, let's look at the track record, okay? Ahsoka Season 2 was not officially greenlit until about 2 months after the series finale.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Was it any doubt that Ahsoka wasn't going to get renewed? Or renewed?
I would say there was. I wouldn't say it was a sure thing, right?
Yeah, got it. Okay. So what have you been hearing? Like, so you just don't know yet, or is that where we're at? We gotta wait for them to make 2 months. We gotta wait 2 months.
basically.
And we also don't know exactly how much ratings affect this, okay? Because from what I
You'd
understand,
hope it would be a big deal.
the highest rated Disney Star Wars streaming
Oh, you mean
show
you mean
is
like
Mandalorian? Okay. I'm
Sorry,
using
do you mean ratings as in like how many viewers, or do you mean ratings in terms of like audience score?
Whatever metric they use
Yeah,
to
yeah.
count as
How many
ratings.
people are viewing the show?
How many
which
people
you
are
think would be
watching the show?
should be the most important thing for a business,
Okay.
right?
So the Mandalorian is before this show came out, the Mandalorian was the highest viewed Star Wars Disney Plus show, and Andor was the lowest viewed Disney Plus show. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we all know Mandalorian is working on season 4 and a movie. Okay. We know Ahsoka is going into season 2, and Ahsoka had higher ratings than Andor. We know Andor had the lowest ratings, and we know Andor is getting season 2. The second highest rated Star Wars Disney show is The Book of Boba Fett. More people watched The Book of Boba Fett than watched Ahsoka or Andor. But
That's
The
interesting,
Book of Boba
but it makes
Fett
sense.
did not get a second season. So if they're greenlighting sequels based on ratings, that doesn't hold up.
Well, the thing about Book of Boba Fett, though, I mean, it would make sense that it would get a lot of viewers because of it had Boba Fett as in the title, right? So they probably look at, well, what are some of the lurking factors into why this thing had high ratings? And they go, well, that's why they got high ratings, but is it going to have future high ratings? They got to look at other factors, right? And go, well, this might not be because what had Boba Fett, and you can only live on that name for so long. That's my sense. So
I will add also, based on interviews I've seen with Tamara Morrison, he was expecting a second season of Boba Fett, and he was actually vocally upset that the second season was not that it didn't go ahead. And he even he literally brought up the fact that it pissed him off even more that he finally got his own show, but they lost 2 episodes to The Mandalorian, and he wasn't even in.
Yeah, I mean,
there was no Boba Fett in 2 episodes of Boba Fett.
Well, and the speculation is that they were panicking, and I don't know what they were really panicking about. Maybe it was the first time they got really bad reviews, and it scared them. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a bummer. I mean, I didn't think the show was that bad. I thought it was fine, and I would have been happy with another Boba Fett season. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. There must have been some reason. Maybe just they got spooked and it was because it was the first time they saw that backlash. Maybe they'll get spooked again for the Acolyte. I don't know.
Book of Boba Fett was the first time they started getting online backlash because everybody loved the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. You have to struggle to find negative comments, but Book of Boba Fett, like when you had the teenage hot rod gangster guys, like that's when people start. That's from my perspective when the Disney Plus stuff started getting negative comments was during the Book of Boba Fett. So that's probably what put them off. It was like, oh, wait a minute. Not everybody loves this the way they love Mandalorian.
And that was under Chapek too, right? He would have been the head honcho around that time, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
So anyway, yeah. So it really. So we haven't heard anything. The show, like I say, it sounds like it's. You haven't heard anything to make you have doubts. We'll just have to see how things play out, I guess, over the next couple of months. Okay.
Because like anything online, you got voices coming from all. They just need to take the time to see how it settles. I think what they're doing is they're going to gauge what the ratings were overall. Because you also got to remember, some people don't do the week by week. There is a segment of audience that waits for everything to be out all at once, so they can watch it all at once, right? So I think they're giving it a little bit of time to.
Yeah. So
see
people
what the
people might watch it all.
Yeah. And then also gauge what the fan reaction is.
Yeah, they might be like, oh, this is interesting. I want to see more. Or they'll see kind of indicators like that. I think it's helpful when the community of experts that you know and follow are showing some positivity. So I think honestly, as long as it has decent streaming numbers consistently through, and then they see like that continuous of people watching it all in one chunk because they hear it's actually not that bad. They'll have the positive indicators, and yeah, I think in about 2-3 months we'll know, and I think it's got a chance. I think it's got a decent chance.
If I had to bet, I'd say it gets a second season for no other reason than the fact that Disney has been putting so much resources and energy into this High Republic initiative for the last 5 or 6 years, right? How they spent 2 years developing this before they even released anything, right? They had that writer's room for 2 years before any books or comic books came out, right? And then, like I said before, they have all the novels, they have the
Yeah.
young adult novels, they have all the like they've invested so much in this timeline, in this area of Star Wars that technically doesn't include the Skywalker saga, right? So I think because of what they have invested, that we're going to get a second season.
I'm guessing all those novels didn't cost $180 million though, so we'll have to see if they want to pony up another 180
No, but
million.
they were doing well enough to keep pumping them out, right? Like
because writing a novel costs nothing. Like it's so much cheaper to write a novel than to make a TV show. Well, it costs $180 million. But I think the one thing also is that you'll get more Yoda, and that might be good enough, right?
Well, I mean that's the argument too. If you come out with Acolyte season 2 and you announce right from the start that Yoda and Plagueis are going to be regular characters on the show, I think they'll have more views than they did for the first season.
Yeah, I think as long as like, and I think it's going to show because, like I said, the early Nielsen's were looking good. I think they're going to look good for the. I mean, unless there's a complete dive, I don't think there is. But if there is, that'll be a problem. But I don't think there is.
I'd be surprised. I think it would end. The show ended stronger, so the viewership should end up stronger.
Yeah, because I'm sure word of mouth is like, I'm sure they did well from the episode 5 because that definitely got a lot of positive buzz. So
yes.
I think I give it a 75% chance that it's going to get renewed. That's my stance.
And also, I mean, another thing that they could. This is again pure speculation on my end, right? I haven't heard anything to like, oh, this is what they're doing. But also, why does it have to be a series? Like, I go to the Werewolf by Night that Marvel put out on Disney. Why not do more things like that, specials? Instead of doing 180 million on 8 episodes, why don't they give them like 80 to 100 million and do like a 2-hour special event movie?
It could be. I mean, I liked how they split out their episodes. So I think they should do episodic. I think they showed that they did okay at episodic. I think they did well actually sometimes. So I get what you're saying. Yes, why not? Go for it.
Yeah.
If it's going to be cheaper, do it. Or it'll be less money you got to spend and just do a shorter time span. Fine. But I think the show. I think it merits another 8 episodes. I think if I was.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. But if it's like, if they're not going to give us 8, I'd still accept, say, a 2-hour movie.
Oh yeah, I'll accept anything.
My point being, I want more of this.
Yeah. No, I think
more of this time frame. I want more of this. Bring back the same. I want the same composer. I thought the guy that did the music in this. I still think Kyle Kenner, the guy that does the Clone Wars and Ahsoka stuff, he's still my favorite non-John Williams composer, but I did actually really like the work that the composer did on this series. I want him back. I want the choreographer for all of the fight scenes from this show back.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
lots of good stuff in the show. All right, so 8 out of 10 for Newhouse. I give it, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and an 8, and I give it a 75% chance that it gets renewed, and I give it I hope it gets renewed for another season. That's my final stance. So, Newhouse, I think it's time. That's great that we got through all the Acolyte. Before we wrap up the episode, any other topics you want to bring up?
I did have a couple of little news things that I read that I just wanted to quickly bring up and share. I wanted to bring up the fact that there was a leak yesterday, and it sounds like there is going to be a sequel to one of my favorite video games of all time, that we can expect Aliens Fireteam Elite 2 to come out in the second quarter of 2025, made by the same development team that made the first Aliens Fireteam Elite.
Yes, so, well deserved by that team. I think they were. I don't think they were a big company, and I think they did an excellent job. And they definitely have gotten. They've continued to develop and improve the AI for the game. Great game, obviously. Yeah, and I know you love it, but I definitely enjoyed it as well. That's great news. Yeah,
and I think if they can take what they did with the first one, and like if they don't have to if they're just able to take that and expand, like improve this and improve that. I have very high hopes for that. So,
good news. Good news.
And the other thing I'll quickly touch upon, this is potential rumors here. Are you okay with this, Johnny D? I don't want to spoil. It's Marvel related.
Oh yeah. Let's bring it on.
Hey, well, there's all sorts of rumors and news floating around right now because next weekend will be the San Diego Comic-Con, and as most people know, San Diego Comic-Con is a giant event when all of the companies like to promote everything that they're going to be doing for the next year. So as such, since the Comic-Con is happening, there's rumors flying around this will be the first time that Marvel is attending a Comic-Con since before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And Marvel has a very big tradition of huge announcements at Comic-Con. Like, for example, when they announced the Avengers, they brought the entire cast on stage. They've done so many big things at Comic-Con. So it's fair to expect some big news coming out here next weekend. Now, the rumors that I'm hearing that I wanted to share with you concern the next two Avengers movie. The rumor is it can be expected that the Russo brothers, the team that directed Captain America Winter Soldier and then directed Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, are going to be announced to be directing the next two Avengers movies.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool.
And the other rumor, now this is both a villain and casting announcement. Are you sure you want to hear this?
Yes.
Well, because we don't know what Avengers 5 is called yet, because originally it was the Kang Dynasty, but they pivoted away from that because of some real life issues with the actor. But we know Avengers 6 was going to be Secret Wars. Okay? So the rumor is the villain of the next two Avengers movie, which makes sense if they're following the 2015 Secret Wars, will be Doctor Doom.
Yep.
But the juicy part, and this makes sense, especially if you know what he said in the past, is that Robert Downey Jr. will be playing Doctor Doom in the next two Avengers.
What? Sorry, was there any mention of that in rumors before this week?
Brand new. There's been rumors that Robert Downey Jr. would be coming back. He was quoted in an interview saying last year that he's open to the possibility. It's much like a Hugh Jackman thing, though, where the death of Tony Stark, they don't want to mess with that because it was so good and so classic and iconic, just like how Hugh Jackman.
So he just wants to act in the MCU, and he'll just be Victor Von Doom.
So the rumor was that we can expect, because the rumor is that the Avengers team for Secret Wars is going to be made up of non-Marvel heroes. That the Avengers team is going to be like Hugh Jackman Logan. It's going to be like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, like Brian, like Bendis Avengers, kind of like where you got Wolverine and Spider-Man, right? Yeah.
And that Tony Stark would be playing an alternate version Iron Man. So that's what the rumor was, that they're not bringing back Tony Stark, that he died, but we're going to have an Iron Man from another timeline. Now, I haven't read this. I think you have. But apparently there is a storyline where there is a Tony Stark from another reality that became the Doctor Doom of that reality.
It sounds vaguely familiar. A lot of stuff is blended in my brain. So, but yeah, that sounds a bit familiar. I can see it happening. I'm sure it did.
And with Robert Downey, I mean, the whole reason Downey Jr. didn't want to be...
so he's going to be that Iron Man, Doctor Doom kind of crossover then?
Yeah, because
okay. So he's not going to be Victor Von Doom.
Why would Robert Downey Jr. want to make $50 million a movie? Well, for him, there was nothing more he could do with that character of Tony Stark. But if it's a Tony Stark of another reality that falls to evil and becomes Doctor Doom,
that's what I was wondering. I was wondering, is he going to be Victor Von Doom? But he's not. He's going to be Tony Stark becoming Doctor Doom. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way, they can still have their own Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four movie and introduce their own Doctor Doom for the MCU, but for this multiverse saga that they've been working up to.
Yeah, okay.
And the thing was, everyone's like, well, Secret Wars, the villain is Doctor Doom. How can you have Doctor Doom as the main villain of Avengers movie? That can't be, Doctor Doom is too important to, just have him be, the villain, right? It doesn't work. But if it's not the real Doctor Doom, it's a Tony Stark from an alternate reality that became Doctor Doom, and now he has the power of the Beyonder or whatever to do all of this stuff, and that is something that Robert Downey Jr. would be like, yeah, I can have fun with that, right?
Got it.
That's not just him collecting a paycheck.
So that's a rumor.
It also makes so much drama too. Whereas, if you have some actors from the characters from the MCU, and
oh, looks like Neos dropped out again. What I was going to ask him, if that was a rumor he's heard, and that it's going to be announced at the Comic-Con. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it sounds like, as he said, that Marvel historically has done some big announcements at Comic-Con,
Yes.
and they've had to slow it down for the since the pandemic, but now they're coming back. So sorry, Nuance, what I was going to ask before you cut out there was, so you've heard these rumors through just the rumor mill, but you were thinking, or they're expecting it to be actually formally announced at the upcoming Comic-Con. Is that right?
Yeah, from my perspective, the fact.
But you've actually been hearing you've heard this as rumors that have been leaked around. That's what's going on.
Yeah. For like the last year, with since we've learned what's happening in Wolverine, Deadpool, right, and how that's all working. Like that's when I started hearing these rumors that the Avengers team for the Avengers Secret Wars, it wouldn't be the Avengers from the MCU that we've been following. It would be a team from different realities, and it would be like actors and character roles from that we've seen in the past, right? Form this crazy Avengers team.
Cool.
Right? So,
all right. Well, cool. So exciting stuff coming up with the Comic-Con. All right, Noel. So I think it's about time to wrap up. Any other anything else before we call it a night?
No, my friend Johnny D. I think that's all I got on my end here. I've done enough talking and sharing, I think.
All right. Well, thanks for a riveting episode. Great discussions on the Acolyte. And so, thanks for hosting again. And everybody, thanks for listening.
And remember, everybody, don't be afraid to tell the truth.
That's right. Or else you might end up causing Order 66. Okay, everybody. Have a great evening, and may the Force be with you.